we're just going to start off with a reflection. We're going to take about 30 seconds just for you to look at this equity and inclusion lens and think about what it means to you, how you might apply it to your work in your space. I know we have diversity of people that are working as teachers, administrators, school support staff. So if this speaks to you, feel free to text in the box or type in the box on how you can apply this to your work, what it means to you, if anything really stands out to you. We'll take about 30 seconds. I'll stop talking so you can think. All right, we'll come back in about 10 seconds. Okay, and I think there was a question on Silva. If you share that out.
Yeah, I'm just going to share it out. So there was a question. I know the session is more focused on equity in the classroom, but how can school leaders monitor equity across their entire school is a question. So
yes,
I think.
So I'm hopeful that we will answer that question once we introduce the tool, and you'll see how flexible it is. I think for me as an instructional coach, I use it individually in the classroom. And I think it's something that you could have teachers use themselves, or even an administrator could use it individually in the classroom. Or once you see it, I think you might also be able to think of creative ways that you could use it, maybe even among staff as well, or maybe even as an administrator in your staff meeting. That's a really good question though. I'm glad we'll definitely make sure to address that. All right, so the next slide, again, from the same municipality guide, I really like this. I think we're all familiar with it working in education. You know, the first image shows that everyone will benefit from the same supports, which we know is not true. That's being treated equally. Then of course, the second image, individuals are getting different support so they have equal access. And that's the equitable kind of benchmark where we are. And then of course, that third image, I'd never seen that before, but I really liked it. Eventually, we're striving towards a society, an educational system without any supports or accommodations because the cause of inequity is addressed and the systemic barriers have been removed. So, you know, we're working in that middle picture today where we're working for equitableness, but eventually, I think we want to be striving towards removing the systemic barriers. So what really brings me to this work in equity is this quote right here. And research has shown that belonging in schools has a direct impact on academic performance. Belonging defines who benefits from caring relationships and who has access to rigorous content and engaging instruction. So the academics can't start until everyone feels that they belong. And if a student or staff is so worried about how they are fitting into the group, then they're not going to be able to have an impact beyond that. So that's really what grounds me in this work. So how can we ensure that students know they belong? How can we set up classrooms? What can we do in our school and our communities? And I believe that starting with reflection is really where we need to begin. So thinking about how our practices include all students, and then once we've reflected and we recognize maybe something that we didn't see before, some roadblocks we might have, then we can take action to ensure that we're really involving all of our students in the process of learning. Are there any thoughts, questions so far? I don't see any, so I'm going to continue. Okay, so equity checklist, again, super simple tool in Excel. It identifies the amount of positive interactions and academic opportunities per student within one lesson. So that can change. In early childhood, the positive interactions might be a good job, or and it could also be that in high school, right? It could be giving out a reward. It could be like a snack or a treat or candy or something. And then the academic opportunities is the other thing. So are you calling on that student? Are they getting a chance to lead a small group? Are they getting a chance to share if they put their hand up? So I started with this because I started coaching I was coaching a classroom last fall. And in early childhood, little boys kind of get a bad rap sometimes because they might be a little bit busier than little girls. And sometimes teachers can kind of have blinders to, and not always, just in this particular circumstance that made me think of this idea. Teachers can have blinders to the participation opportunities they're giving students in class. So I started off with completing this checklist in a classroom just to kind of see how many chances a teacher was giving little boys, first girls to answer. After it was successful in that classroom and the teacher was really able to be reflective on her practice and think about different ways, maybe not necessarily through raised hands, but through action and movement to give students more chances to answer. I noticed there was another classroom where a teacher wasn't including her SPED students in whole group learning as much as she could have been doing. And so I used this checklist and she was able to see it in the data and then able to change her practice. And then moving forward, the sky's the limit, right? We can think just being able to continue reflecting and thinking about different ways to hold ourselves and our teachers accountable and our staff and administrators accountable can really help move us forward to a more reflective and more fair society. So here is the checklist, and we're going to open it up. I'm going to have to switch my screen really quick. Let's see. New share. Okay. Okay. Oh, I don't want to do that. Oh no, wait. That doesn't look like the screen I just had up. Hold on, you guys. I'm so sorry. Bear with me. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to click share. Every time I click share, it goes to this clear cache and cookies. Is it cache or cache? I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Okay, I have another idea. I'm going to open it up, and instead of sharing the actual screen, I'm going to share my whole screen. So please ignore my messy screen. Oh no, why? Oh wait, you guys, I'm so sorry. I have my personal Gmail opening up, and maybe that's why it's not working. Okay, there it is. It's loading. Pretty, why does it keep doing this?
I don't know. Do you want to look at that? I'm going to just think about it a little bit. So I think that I'll just talk for a second. Just wanted to kind of let folks know this is going to be a simple equity checklist that I think that everyone can use and adapt to their own uses. And I think that someone else asked a question about like, how do you present this data in a way that does not set teachers to get defensive? So that's something else to think about. If while we're like resolving this technical issue, if you have any like thoughts on the questions that have been posed in the Whova app, feel free to respond. Just give us a quick minute to resolve this real quick. Rosa, I would just open up the other browser.
Okay.
And then
I like a new browser.
copy the, yeah, and then just go to your Google Drive to where it is directly. Okay. And then if you need to clear cache or cache, whatever it's called, in cookies, do that.
Okay. I never cleared my cookies, so I'm not sure how to do that. So I hope I don't need to.
I can tell you how.
Okay, I think I need you to tell me how because I just reopened it.
Go up to your browser at the top.
Okay.
And there should be like a Chrome option for clearing your browsing data. And that's where you do it.
Okay, Chrome, clear browsing data. Okay, there we go. That seemed pretty easy.
Yeah. And it also looks like that screen that it was taking you to would allow you to do it.
Oh, that would make sense if I just read through it.
No worries.
Okay, so that's taking a while. Okay. My computer was like, too much. You're making me do too much.
No worries. And I think I also have your slide deck. So if you need me to do it, let me know.
Okay. Are there any good conversations going on?
Just, you know, it's hot out there today. All of that. When you're thinking about how hot you keep your house or how cold, I usually keep it pretty warm.
There's a question in the chat about the suggested percentage for positive interactions per student, whether that should be over 50%, over 80%, etc.
So that's a really interesting question. And to be honest, I set goals for my teachers based on where we started, and I tried to make them attainable goals. I didn't have like a set number in mind of what we were looking for. But I think that could definitely work for your classroom or your environment. I would definitely start with where you are today and see. So like if you're having, and again, I did mine more of a comparison of groups. So I was just trying to increase interactions for, maybe more academic interactions for boys, and then more positive interactions for girls. So like, let's say it started off a certain number, we were just trying to increase it to a certain level as a goal. But I think as you collect your data, you can also see other ways that you can make goals. But I don't think, that's a really interesting question. I think that's definitely something to think through. Okay, so I have this up, so I'm gonna.
I also have it up, so let me know if you have issues.
Okay, all right. Can everyone see the spreadsheet? Yes, excellent, thank you, Preeti. Okay, so this is what the observation data look like. Super simple. This is like not, no Excel genius going on here. I listed the student names. I listed the times the student was called on, times they were praised and encouraged, and then, and that was it to start the observation. So this is what it looks like. And everyone should have access to the slide deck, correct? And all the information with the sample data. So this is the sample data. So you can play around if you want to. Okay, perfect, thank you. If you guys want to open this up, I actually made a video that I thought you guys, I'm so sorry, I thought I had my life together today, and now I don't know where I put my lovely video. It's in the folder, actually, I think, as well.
So I just resent the link to the materials folder through both chats, just so that folks have it. That's the materials folder that we've been sharing throughout, just so that you are able to, you can download the slide deck, as well as the equity checklist sample, and the video that Rose is talking about. So.
Okay, so I was gonna, at this point, I had made this video because I wanted to make sure I didn't, that I touched on everything I wanted to talk about. So I'm gonna play it, if it will open, but it's also in the folder. So if you guys have some trouble with the, with streaming and everything, it's like 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. And it just goes over the checklist, how to use it, and different ways you can manipulate the data. And then from there, we can come back and chat a little bit about different ways to use it. And Preeti, I'm actually having trouble opening the folder.
Okay, I've downloaded it.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Okay. I thought I had downloaded it, but I think I
I
accidentally
got it. Let
cleared
me
it.
share my screen.
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you guys for your patience as I am.
Be prepared. My screen has a lot of stuff on it too. Can you see it?
Yes.
Great. Is it big enough?
Perfect.
Great. I'm going to play.
How to set up an equity checklist and use it in your classroom, and then we're going to briefly discuss ways that we can arrange data so that we can use demographics. So to start off, pretty simple. You can open up Excel or Google Sheets, make a column for the student's name, as you can see I did that in column A, and then choose what you want to measure. So in my case, I want to measure the times students were called on or had a chance to respond to an academic question. And I also wanted to measure the positive interactions that they had with the teacher. That's all you need. So you do your observation. If you're self-observing, you record yourself, and then you can type in the number that you see throughout the lesson. And then once you're done, I created a column for teacher reflection. If you're a coach, you can walk the teacher through that. If you're a teacher working on your own, you can do your own reflection. And as I use this checklist more frequently with teachers, they would have their own reflection before we met, and then we would just go through and discuss it in our ideas to move forward. So that's it. That's the equity checklist. You can see what you want to measure and what you want to really look for in your classroom. Now, because it's the DC Data Summit, we're going to talk about different ways we can use the data to analyze some more trends in our classroom. So let's take a look at our interactions based on gender. So to do that, you can just make a copy of your spreadsheet. You just duplicate it, and it'll show up in another tab. For the sake of time, I have already cleaned up this data. Instead of having names, I replaced their names with their gender, and I just put it in this column. So the first graph that I want to create that I think is going to really help me understand my classroom is I want to create a pie chart that breaks down the percentage of students in my classroom. So I'm just going to select the column for that, and I'm going to insert chart. And Google Sheets is pretty smart. I've made this chart before, so it knows that when it sees a data set like this, it is going to create a pie chart. Of course, you don't have to stick with a pie chart if that is not what you would like. Google Sheets gives you many different options to create other types of graphs. Perhaps a column chart would be more helpful for you to see the data. Maybe you pie chart. There's a lot of different things you can play around with. So from there, now that I kind of have a basic breakdown of what my classroom looks like, I want to organize the data so that I can create a bar chart that will show me a comparison of the different interactions based on gender that they were called on and that students were encouraged. So to do that, I'm going to organize my data. I'm going to just quickly sort it by male and female. I'm going to add a different state so that I can add up all of these interactions. To add something up in Excel, I can do it pretty quickly without having to use a calculator. I can just select the data set, click sum, and there we go. It tells me how many times female students were called on. I'm going to do the same thing with how many times female students were praised. And I created another chart over here to create a data set that will easily translate into a bar chart. So I'm going to type in female students were called on 10 times, data praised students were 3 times, and I'm going to add up my male data. They were called on 3 times, and how many times were they praised? I can add it up really quickly using my sum function. And 3, 8. And then I can just select the data. I can click insert chart. And again, Silva is smart. I've created a chart that I can bring into the classroom, and teachers and I can have really thoughtful conversations about the different types of interactions that they're having with students of different genders in their classroom.
Hopefully people are able to see that.
Yeah, it was a little dicey. So if you guys have questions, feel free to type them in. Again, that was kind of like the overview of what you can do with it. When I started off using it, I started off with just using, here, let me open that real quick. With just using this table essentially as a conversation point. So just student names, just the time the student was called on, just the time the student was praised or encouraged. And then afterwards, I would have the teacher reflect. So I initially led them through the reflection. If this is something that teachers are doing on their own, of course they would reflect on their own. And then we would think about actions we can do to move forward. So again, early childhood, these are, you know, some of them might just be like putting sticky notes in lesson plans, maybe having like a sticker ready to go to praise a student, something like that. But that's kind of the most basic use of the tool. But for further reflection, I also want to share. Okay, I'm gonna go back to presentation. I'm sorry for all the lag time, you guys. Okay, so then also the charts I think can be really helpful. So something that was helpful when we were really working through the gender differences in the classroom were realizing that, wait a minute, we have 70% males in the classroom and only nearly 30% females, but 64% of the times that we're having academic interactions are with female students. So how can we have more conversations where we can even it out a little bit more, so that it looks, so that it, you know, kind of matches the demographics of it, so that students that are, so the responses that students are giving matches the students in the classroom. And then, you know, another way to present that could also be a comparison. So I think this was a pretty striking way to see that, wow, you know, these female students are getting lots of academic at-bats, and that's great that these male students are getting lots of praise and encouragement. But why is that? You know, so this is a teacher who might be, actually, I would love to get your input. We haven't chatted in a while. Does anyone have any guesses about what this data might tell us? What might this mean about the classroom setup, or what the teacher might be doing unconsciously. Amanda raised her hand.
I can allow her to talk.
Cool. Thank you, Preeti.
Okay, Amanda.
Yeah. So it seems like, I don't know if maybe there's a conception of, I know a lot of times boys move a lot, and some teachers have that notion that if a student is moving a lot, then they're not paying attention. So I wonder if the girls are sitting down really crisscross, if that's the reason they're getting called on, because they're sitting the way that maybe the teacher wants them to sit. I've seen this happen where if a student is moving, and I would imagine the boys maybe move a little bit more, maybe that's a bias, I don't know. Maybe that's why they're calling on the girls, because they're sitting the way that they want them to. I don't know.
Yeah, Amanda, yeah, exactly. And I think Jamie also said, since female students respond more, maybe they're expected to do better. And when a boy finally speaks, they might get more praise because they don't speak up more. Yeah, so and there's no, right, yeah, females are called on far more than boys, but boys are praised more than females. So exactly what Amanda was speaking to, the boys were busier. And so the teacher, in her best effort, was trying to encourage the boys that were sitting the way that she wanted them to be sitting. So when they were sitting, she was like, great job, you're doing so great, I love that you're sitting still. But then they were sitting still, but not getting a chance to answer the question. So they were getting praised for the behavior the teacher was looking for, but student compliance is recognized by the teacher, exactly, Shani. So
Rose, there's a question in here when you're ready for one.
Oh, sure.
And I think this is something you're going to get to after the session, but there's a question around like, how do you select the inputs that have the most impact on student outcomes, and what outcomes do you use to measure and gauge equitable outcomes for kids? So like, how do you define what that looks like?
Yeah, and once we kind of get through the different data displays, we're going to talk about that in our last like 15-ish minutes. So I'm going to put a pin in that one, but that's a great point. So again, here, just another graph, another way to display the demographics. And it's it can just be a checkpoint, right? So we're looking for things to match, right? We're looking for things to kind of like line up a little bit more. And if we see things that kind of seem a little bit off, there might be a reason. Maybe we're measuring the wrong thing. Maybe praise and encouragement isn't something that needs to be measured. Maybe there's a reason why students need more. Yes, I will definitely share a little bit more about the conversations with teachers. And that the whole idea of displaying the data and of recording it in the first place is to have those conversations. So let me I'm going to rewind a little bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the conversations I had with the teacher when I first started it. And again, we use the checklist because the teacher wanted and wants to continue to do better and continually improve. So our school had conversations around equity and around inclusion and making sure that we are providing all of our students the best education that we possibly can. So we are entering these conversations with a little bit of insight and an open mind and heart into this work. So what I always did to initiate the conversations, as I would go in, I'd collect the data, I'd have the student names, the times they were called on, encouraged, and then leaving that one blank column for teacher reflection, I would ask the teacher, do you want to reflect together, or do you want to reflect on your own first, and then we can have a discussion about it? So initially, teachers wanted to reflect together just because of time. So when I presented the list, it was their first time looking at it. So I would take about 5 minutes for them just to look at it, absorb, think about what they see. And then we would go through. And so I would, either type for the teacher or the teacher wanted to type themselves, just on these reflections. So what was interesting is that teachers were often surprised. So they would say, oh, that's so funny. I thought that I always called on that student, but then I would say, well, you're giving them a lot of praise, but you're not calling them, you're not giving them academic opportunities. Or they would say, I thought I was praising that student. I was telling them, good job a lot, but it would turn out, oh, well, you actually only did it once. And so I think they came into it with an open heart and an open mind. And I think that really helped. We would kind of frame it before we started coaching with this. We really framed it that way. But it really just led to very thoughtful conversations. So I hope that kind of answers that question a little bit. Okay, so moving forward, I know we have many participants. What kind of data can you collect? So Preeti talked to a high school teacher who said, in high school, small group leaders could be kind of an area. Other leadership opportunities in the classroom. Apparently food incentives are very big in the upper grade levels, or any other kind of rewards. And then of course, any kind of at-bat, learning opportunities, positive encouragement. I just want to kind of pause and see if anyone is thinking like, oh, wow, I could use this in a certain way, or if there's something else, that it looks like we're missing.
Or if you have thoughts about what you think is important to collect, like what are things that you're thinking about now in your classrooms and schools that you're like, okay, this is something that, it's pretty easy for teachers to kind of get into a rhythm of doing. Like, what does that look like for my teachers in my school?
And one thing I also want to point out is that, again, we're moving towards equity, not equality, right? So we're not looking for necessarily like a specific number or for everything to look the same. So thinking about like at-bats and learning opportunities. When I did this with a classroom that was working on including their education students more mindfully and giving them different academic at-bats, this didn't look like that student raising their hand and speaking. It looked like a TA sitting next to that student and asking them to give a response while the whole group was giving a response, just to make sure that they weren't left out of that learning opportunity. So it's not necessarily saying, oh no, I haven't given out incentives to all 20 of my students, because all 20 of your students might not need the same incentive. It's looking at, okay, is this student getting what they need in the classroom?